Hi guys, welcome to my channel. So before we get started, make sure to hit that like button, also subscribe to my channel. In this video, we will talk about why 95% of Australia is empty, so make sure to watch the full video. Australia's population density is an interesting one, considering that most of the country's population lives along the coast and the biggest cities in Australia. The overall population density doesn't quite capture how dense the livable areas actually are. What is Australia's population density? While Australia is the sixth largest nation in the world in terms of physical area, its population density is incredibly low. As of June 2020, Australia's population density is 3.3 people per square kilometer. Compare that to somewhere like India, which has a population density of 464 people per square kilometer, or the United States with 36 people per square kilometer. It's easy to see that Australia's population is spread out. However, in the biggest cities in Australia, such as Sydney and Melbourne, the population density increases. Melbourne's inner city has Australia's highest population density at 22,400 people per square kilometer. Potts Point and Pyrmont, both in Sydney's inner city, have the second highest population density in Australia at 16,700 and 16,500 people per square kilometer, respectively. Still, for a big city, these numbers are still relatively low. To put them into perspective, New York City has a population density of over 38,000 people per square kilometer. Australia's population density is low because most of the country's interior is desert, also known as the outback, and presents extremely difficult living conditions. So, while Australia's major cities have population densities comparable to the rest of the Western world, when you take into consideration all the empty space in the middle, you get a low overall population density. Why does population density in Australia matter? The population density in Australia matters for the same reasons it matters in any country. Still, it's important to look at the population density of the biggest cities in Australia, not just the nation at large. It's also wise to consider migration rates in any given area. For governments, home buyers, investors, and others, it's important to know how many people live in a certain area, as well as how many people are moving in or out. How much of the land in Australia is lived in? Central and Western Australia are sparsely populated. Large areas of the Northern Territory and the desert regions are uninhabited. Approximately 40% of Australia's interior is desert where Type B climates dominate. The large land mass can heat up during the summer months, triggering high temperatures. Australia is one of the most sparsely populated countries in the world. 9 out of 10 people live on only 3% of the land. Most of Australia's 19 million people live near the coast because the inner parts are made up of deserts. 80% of the country's population live in the southeastern part of the country. Australia 2020 population is estimated at 25,499,884 people at mid-year, according to UN data. Australia population is equivalent to 0.33% of the total world population. Since 1976, Australia's census does not ask for racial background. It is unclear how many Australians are of European descent. Estimates vary from 85% to 92%, with a population of around 25 million people and 85% living within 50 km of the coast. A large portion of the country remains uninhabited, primarily in the centre region. What are the causes of underpopulation in Australia? Underpopulation in Australia. Underpopulation occurs when there are far more resources in an area. For example, Australia's landmass of 76 million km2, 22 million people, double Greece only. Australia can export their surplus food, energy, and mineral resources. Australia's first people, known as Aboriginal Australians, have lived on the continent for over 50,000 years. Today there are 250 distinct language groups spread throughout Australia. The majority of Australians continue to live in the eastern mainland states. Almost 80% lived in New South Wales, Victoria, Queensland, and the Australian Capital Territory in 2016. What population path is desirable for Australia? Sustainable Population Australia argues that the lowest, soonest achievable peak in Australian population is the best outcome for the well-being of Australians, for biodiversity and environmental integrity, and to maximize our contribution to ending climate change, poverty, and conflict globally. It is often argued that migration does not contribute to global population, So efforts to limit global population should not include migration controls. Unfortunately, we don't live in a world with benevolent global governance, which might pursue population stability in a coordinated fashion. We can only lead by example. To demonstrate the benefits of population stabilization, we must stabilize our own population. In contrast, if our government continues its current habit of talking up false economic benefits of population growth, we severely undermine the commitment of our poorer neighbors, such as Papua New Guinea and Timor-Leste, to address their own debilitating population growth and the reproductive rights of their women. Since 1950, Australia has received some 8 million immigrants, but this represents only 5 weeks' worth of global population growth. Each year, around 80 million extra people are added to the world population, and this pace of growth has not declined in recent decades. Almost all the extra people are added to urban slums in the developing world. We can't reduce poverty by bringing people here. The numbers needed just to prevent growth of slums are many times higher than we could absorb. We can only hope to reduce poverty by helping people to live more prosperously and sustainably where they are. We have a responsibility to protect the endemic species and ecosystems of this continent. We also have responsibility for the social and economic well-being of existing Australian residents. These duties should not be compromised in a futile attempt to relieve population pressure elsewhere through immigration to Australia. What do you think of our video? Let me know in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button. Also subscribe to our channel before you go. Thank you for watching.